You can see it from the gleam on my face. I'm so super happy about my guest today. His name is Aditya Rajaram, multifaceted. He's a founder investor of Indian School of Hospitality. He is a hotel asset owner in Dubai. His family owns one of the largest car dealership in the Emirates. He is an investor in many startups. He's less than 40, and what an energy, young and philosophical. I can't wait for you to see this episode. This is one of those episodes which will cut right from the 20-year-olds to the 50-year-olds. And eventually what you're going to take away from this is again the 3 G's that we kind of talk about: grunt, grind, and greatness. Adi,
hi Kunal, how are you?
Welcome to your ISH.
Good.
How are you doing? Good to see you too. Lovely.
Thank you for
Please
the
come.
opportunity.
Please. Salam, namaste, sat shri akal, adab. I've always wanted to have this young man, young investor, yet a legacy man on my show. What you will see eventually when we unpeel the layers is he's a family man, he has young children, based out of Dubai, diversified business interests all around the world. He's a founder investor at ISH. And how does a 35-year-old person eventually do all of this? So before we start the show, I really like to introduce you to a board member, a dear friend, a dear brother. Adi, how are you doing?
All good, Kunal. Really happy to be here. I guess this is our 3rd time trying this out, since
So
the first
right.
2 times travel did not allow me, but
Yeah.
really happy to be here and to be on campus.
You're absolutely right. And the last time it was a massive,
Yeah.
I would say, weather event which happened in Dubai.
That I could not control.
Right,
but,
and 16 hours at the airport.
Yeah.
You were stranded, but really appreciate
But I got time, at least through video conferencing, to speak to the students.
And,
so that was good.
and at that perspective, when we put that video up there, the younger generation who really want to have these candid conversations or hear feedback, from an entrepreneur, they really kind of appreciate it.
Awesome.
So thank you so much for
Pleasure.
Adi, tell me something. It just needs to start back to your family from India, your initial years in India, and of course the family shifted to Dubai. But pretty much you travel all around the world in your early years. Let's just go back there.
Yeah. So I'm an expat brat. As you know, my father moved to the Middle East in the 70s, in Oman, and then now in the UAE. During that time, I did my early education in Oman, and then through family circumstances, my father thought it was better that I joined Coady International for boarding school, and I spent a good 8 years there. I would say that Coady was really my first experience in molding my mindset, my ideas about what I wanted to do in life. I had some phenomenal professors, either from business economics, business and management organization. And then towards the end of IB, obviously 10th, 11th, and 12th, my vision of where I saw myself in the world in terms of a career path started formulating. And that kind of was my start to really seeing where my career
when you were with Coady, your family was in Dubai.
was in Dubai, yes.
And what was the reason behind studying in India while the family was there? Because Dubai had its own school at that point in time.
Yeah, so Dubai had a lot of schooling there, but my dad was a single parent at the time and felt that, the Middle East in those days wasn't the best place to raise an only child with a single parent. And my grandparents were based in Chennai.
Good.
And my father gave me the opportunity to sort of handpick any boarding school I wanted in India, but felt that India was a great opportunity because we had family and infrastructure there. So we went all the way from north to south, looked at a whole bunch of schools, whether it was Ooty, Kodi,
Right.
Bosco, all that stuff. And Kodi sort of worked out. I just had a great vibe about the campus, the experience. And it was about 10, 12 hours from Chennai, which is where my grandparents were. I felt comfortable there. As I mentioned, I was an only child, so I've never really spent time away from any parent, and I was a bit hesitant about that. But it really worked in my favor, and I really enjoyed being there.
Adi,
Yeah.
what were you as a child?
I was definitely a spoiled brat.
Okay.
For a very long time, I was definitely a spoiled brat.
And academically speaking?
Not very bright for a very long time. Now you mentioned I have 2 kids. I'm very cognizant about how my wife and I talk about my child's, both our children's sort of educational growth, because I was definitely a late bloomer. So my 8 years in Kodi, I can honestly tell you that it was not until 10th grade where I kind of woke up. Up until 10th grade, I was an extremely mediocre, and I'm giving mediocre a very high bar there. The truth is, how they always used to say in your report card, bright kid but not applying himself? I think that was written everywhere. Yeah, sharp kid, really, when he wants to, he can apply himself, all that stuff just kept going on. By 10th grade, something clicked, and I think it was a very hard conversation with my father at that time, where he was like, look, your grades are just not going anywhere. Something clicked, and I was able to find a couple of mentors during my IB formative. So by 10th grade, we started getting paired up with your IB mentors. Started doing pre-IB courses. I started realizing I liked economics, business. And those professors started really honing in what I liked. And I started developing a little bit of a passion for certain industries, certain business and stuff like that. So that's where...
That could be your first pivot, I would say, in your
100%.
early life.
10th grade would definitely have been my first pivot. Not only in a maturity phase where I said, okay, it's time I got my act together, but also started realizing what I really liked to do, what I really liked to see. And that's where it formed.
True.
Yeah.
And then you decided, let me go to the US and get myself admitted in UPenn.
Yeah.
Right?
So basically, what had happened was in about 10th grade, my father had started asking me what I wanted to do with my life. And I said, I don't know where it came from, but I think I said, I wanted to go into culinary. I wanted to become a chef, which kind of took me by surprise, but also him. I don't think we had ever spoken about it, but I was very passionate about it. And I really liked cooking, and I liked sort of the idea of the executive chef and running a kitchen and serving people. And I think that was obviously the start of my love affair with service and giving.
Entire service orientation.
Exactly. And ironically, he came back and said, okay, he's in obviously the car business. That's our family side of the business. But a lot of his friends were hotel owners and general managers. So he was like, okay, pick a hospitality program. So obviously during the pre-SATs and all that stuff, I was looking at schools. Penn State was one of my first choices because they had a very good hospitality program, but they also had a business program to it. I looked at about 4 or 5 other schools. And obviously, I didn't know much about American education at the time. Cornell was up there. Penn State was a good option. Boston U was a good option. Finally picked Penn State because one of the old Kodi grads was an alumni there. And she had reached out to me and said, hey, Penn State's a great alumni program as well. There's a huge network in India. There's a huge network in the Middle East that can support you. have a look at the program.
And many Indian students go.
And many Indian students go there. And then I said, okay, look, let's do it. So I applied, fortunately got in. And then I ended up applying to both the business school and the hospitality school because they were two very different and very developed programs already.
And the multidisciplinary aspect of the US system, in my opinion, I think it's one of the best.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one thing I always say, once you finish the full IB, you really realize the true value and the opportunity you get once you go to a US education, because that full IB really waived off almost my entire undergraduate freshman year of requirement. And it allowed me to be so much more flexible into the classes I wanted, because econ I had already completed, higher level math already completed. So it was just, what do you want to do now? So I said, okay, let me start doing entry level to hospitality, entry level to business. And that really gave
instead of knowledge assimilation, it was more to do with application.
Exactly.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So you finished 4 years of undergrad with the Penn State. What happened after that?
So once I graduated, or as I was graduating from Penn State, I knew I wanted to go into hotel operations. I had 3 job opportunities lined up. First one was Four Seasons. The opportunity presented itself in the form of a new development in Dubai Festival City. They were going to build their first Four Seasons. And I had an opportunity to join as a management trainee with them. The second one was to join as a management trainee with a completely different product in Washington, D.C., the Mayflower, which was a 100-plus-year-old Grand Dame, a benchmark Marriott asset, has hosted multiple presidents, very close to the Bethesda Marriott headquarters. And it was 2 very different opportunities, New World, emerging market, or Grand Dame, legacy
market.
asset. I ended up going with DC's option to join Marriott. One is because, when you first get into hospitality, the Marriott brand name is the Marriott brand name.
At least in the US.
At least in the US, And I really, for me, as a young hospitality guy, obviously Four Seasons was like, oh my God, I need a job with Four Seasons. But it wasn't a real hotel at that point. It was a developing hotel. It was still a greenfield land plot at the time. And I felt that, I wanted to get right into it. I wanted to go into operations straight away. And I ended up going the route of the Washington, D.C. opportunity. Very fortuitous, because unfortunately, right after, 2 years after that, the financial crisis hit. And then the project in Dubai never really took off at the time, and I would have been probably stuck without an opportunity. And so Marriott was my first foray.
I think something. By the time the car business in Emirates was a fledgling business, right? It was a mature business. There's service orientation out there as well.
Correct.
Didn't you want to apply it with the family business at that point in time?
Yeah, so it's very interesting, Kunal, because fortunately, very early on, there were obviously a lot of people that reached out to me and asked me, why aren't you joining your father? Why aren't you going to the car business, etc.? And I realized very early on, because of the passion I started developing for the hospitality industry, that there's a very big difference, even in the hospitality industry or in the car business, to have a passion for cars or a passion for the car business. The same with passion for the hospitality business or passion for travel and leisure. Right? You would argue that there are certain people who absolutely love the 18, 20, 22-hour days we put into hotel ops. And, a guy that will, or girl that will come to you and say, oh, I love traveling or stuff, they would never be caught dead doing the 20 hours that we do behind the scenes.
For sure.
Same with the car business. I love cars. I love being in car races. I love seeing my dad's business. But technically, he also is in the behind the scenes of car business as a franchise owner.
Yeah.
So he very clearly told me, you have to understand, this is not a love affair with cars. This is a love affair with the car business. And I don't think you have that love affair. I have that love affair. You love the front side of what you see, but you're not going to be able to enjoy the backside, you know? So appreciate that there's a big difference. And that's where I realized that, okay, I love cars. I love the whole industry, but my passion is not back of house.
But would you even consider this aspect that here is your father who's built that kind of business and actually nudging you towards your passion and saying, you know what, if you like the passion of building a hospitality business, in this case a hotel, right? Go ahead and do that. You know, and here, since you're the only child, he has his business to run for the longest time because...
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a discussion I have with my wife all the time, right? I mean, we have 2 young kids right now.
True.
I now run a hotel business. I now have a entrepreneurial sort of infrastructure that I've created. There is something to be said about legacy and wanting your kids to join that business, but there is also something to be said about a prudent parent and a responsible parent allowing their kids to do what is within their passion. You know, and I was very lucky that 2 things worked out in my defense. My father gave me that flexibility and said, if that's your passion, go right ahead. You know, we know this, like becoming a chef is not like you just wake up and your parent suddenly says, okay, sure, go ahead and do it. You know, for me, that was 15 years ago. Today, we're still talking about this with parents at ISH. And then he had the infrastructure to introduce me to the right people, right? Even throughout Penn State, I had internships at the Four Seasons, at the Sofitel in London, at the Jumeirahs in the UAE. And I was very lucky to have those opportunities. And you have to accept that, you know, doors open for you and you either take that opportunity or you say, no, I'm going to go back and do family legacy stuff.
After DC, you decide to come back?
Yeah. So as I mentioned to you, financial crisis, the opportunity presented in a very unique way where they said, look, Ari, we want to keep you on, but anything going forward will be on your own. So figure out your own visa, figure out your own. And at that time, I already started realizing, you know, 4 years with Marriott, I realized slowly I wanted to do stuff more than hotel operations. During those 4 years, I spent a lot of time with the hotel ownership of the Mayflower, and the GM at that time, Satinder Palta, always invited me to a little bit of the XCOM meetings with the owners, the monthly business review meetings. And I got very excited with the whole asset management and ownership side of it. And that's when I started realizing I need to start building on my skill set, not just operations, but owner relations, financial acumen, etc., which I did not have. You know, I didn't know how to read a P&L really well, and I needed to build that on. And that's when I said, look, maybe it's the right time to go back and do an MBA. And that's when I decided I'll go back to Dubai, regroup, start applying, doing my GMAT, start applying for my MBA, and then that's how I started doing that. Now, the MBA search for the school was very, very unique. You could go pretty much 2 routes, and it's obviously something that we at ISH discussed a lot, you know, when we were building this out with you and Dilip, is there is something to be said about generalization in education.
True.
And nowadays, specialization, right? Even at the MBA level. Now, obviously, for legacy parents, an MBA is an MBA, right? My son has to do an MBA. I don't care whether it's Harvard, whether it's UPenn, whether it's Yale. So I initially said, let's look at that route. I did generalized MBA applications. We did Yale. We did, you know, I went back and chose Penn State as well. And I said, let's apply to Penn State. And then unbeknownst to me, Cornell had an MBA program that was completely specialized only for hospitality students. And they called it the Masters of Management in Hospitality. And I didn't realize what that opportunity was. So I started digging in further. And once I started looking at the curriculum, I realized it was basically an MBA program, but the last 6 to 8 months completely goes into hospitality, asset management, financial management for hotels.
That's the real estate and finance.
The real estate finance, exactly.
Right.
And I said, that's really what I want. So I reached out to the Cornell guys and I said, look, I'm very interested in that, but you need to sell me on why not an MBA.
True.
And it came down very simply to job opportunities after. And they said, look, after you finish your MBA, your standard MBA, your job opportunities will be in banks, Big Four, big consulting firms, McKinsey, Bain, BCG, all that kind of stuff. But is that what you want? And I said, no, not really. And they said, look, from our perspective, once you graduate from our program, you then get brought into, yes, maybe banks, yes, maybe Big Four, but into their hospitality specialization, right? So if you look at BlackRock, if you look at Blackstone, Bank of America, JP Morgan, a lot of the Cornell grads out of there, even though they did hospitality, they got put into the real estate finance for their hospitality portfolio. And I said, that's what I want.
Very sectoral.
Very sectoral specific.
Yeah.
I said, that's what I want. And said, this is the opportunity that we'll be able to afford.
But tell me something, Adi, if I kind of go back, your family was always an entrepreneurial family, right? And after Penn State, the DC with Marriott, now Cornell, and we were talking largely service orientation in, let's say, consulting companies. You had the entrepreneurial gene in you, right? Did you know early stage, this is just my journey and eventually will be some aspect of entrepreneurship that I will eventually be?
Yeah, I would say very early on. I would like to think that maybe it formed in Cody, but I would say it really formed freshman year of college. I guess Cody, it was a more fantastical vision that I had, that I want to be a hotel owner one day. But Penn State, freshman year, I really sat next to real hotel owners, right? We had multiple independent hotel owners and founders. One of our benefactors who are part of the Bamfi family, who they own a lot of hotels. They're Marriott franchise owners. They spent a lot of time with us, and I really loved it. And I really felt that I could do it. And in America, given what the Indian diaspora has done in the hospitality ownership field, you really felt you were not very far away from that opportunity, because they started with a 10, 12 room motel. They started with a gas station. So you didn't feel like, oh my God, how am I going to own a hotel? How am I going to build a hotel? Because they didn't start like that either.
There was history already there.
And I think that's the advantage of that American education. I felt that it was really within, touching distance of quite a bit of hard work, but it's achievable. It's attainable. And I think I was very fortunate to be surrounded by, smaller mom and pop entrepreneurs in the Penn State realm that gave me that feeling like I keep pushing and I can get there. And that's where it formed.
Adi, you said something changed in you grade 10 onwards, right? Were you consistent after grade 10 in terms of academic on one side?
Yeah.
It's just element of, I would say, knowledge assimilation, application. But your own life journey, were you consistently serious now, saying that, I really want to do something, and the next 6-8 years, because there's a lot of distraction, right? So especially in the US, at the undergrad, you could be in Harvard, you could be in Penn State, but there's so much distraction. Were you focused, or did you discover yourself with that distraction?
This would be a funny question to ask my wife, because I obviously met her freshman year of college. And she will tell you that the Adi that started college was completely focused on only one thing, and that was academia. I became extremely strict, extremely purpose driven, extremely focused on everything that I wanted to do.
And this is self-driven, right?
Completely self-driven. Completely self-driven. I don't know. Like I said, even now when I look at my kids and Senna and I talk about, oh my God, at what point should we start getting more strict with the kids? And I said, Senna, if it took me to 10th grade to really switch on something, maybe we just need to create the environment and it will switch on their own. They will figure it out. Yeah. And really from that time on, I was just really focused. So much so that it wasn't even from a discipline perspective, but I started putting together a lot of the moving parts. If I wanted to become an entrepreneur and become a hotel owner, what building blocks do I need to do that? Yeah. What mentors do I need to bring in? And fortunately, and I would give, obviously, my parents this credit because they gave me that confidence to be like, be a bit ballsy. If you have to ask somebody, go ask somebody. I know Uncle so-and-so who's the GM of this hotel. Why don't we go ask him if he can give you an internship? Yeah. Go learn something. And when your parents say that, let's go ask, then inside you say, okay, then all I have to do is ask. All I have to do is see if I can get the opportunity.
Adi, tell me something. The early onslaught of success that you see, is this trade-off where you gotten serious? And I have seen this with so many people who are, I would say, successful. Yeah. Success is very relative, but let's just deem it as success. That the early stage, let's say after grade 12, they became really serious. They traded off nightlife, they traded off so many other, I would say, discoveries to concentrate on their careers or on whatever gave them the fuel. And what I have seen, at least 30 years of my experience, is they saw early success and they are the consistent compounders after that. Yeah. Is that early seriousness and that trade-offs that happen. Yeah. Do you believe that?
Look, I definitely believe that. And I really think that, yes, I sacrificed a lot of after school enjoyment, after college enjoyment. But, like I said, I was very fortunate. I met my future wife in college. I formed a very, very close relationship with her. She immediately bought in and supported my vision for what I wanted to do, even while she had her own vision and her career growth plan, and really gave me the confidence that, you should really try to balance out your social with your academic, but you do you get it and get it done. And I think there is an opportunity. There is a point to be made about working hard now and then reaping the success.
It's just the trade-offs.
And I can say that I have been very fortunate because of that. The opportunity presented itself where, through my family support and investment, by the time I hit 40, I was able to own my first hotel and do investments, and I would say that is part opportunity and family opportunity presenting itself, and part putting myself in that positive situation to win that.
And do you also kind of believe that the American US collegiate ecosystem that can exist fosters this kind of creativity, fosters that push, because the system is structured in a way where it really pushes you towards achieving whatever you want to.
Kunal, I would say it does it so, but in a very passive way. The American education system is true to the American life system, which is the opportunity is there for the taking, right? When you get to college, it's not like anywhere else in the world where everything sort of molds you to take that one. You could flunk out in college. Absolutely. They don't care if you wake up in the morning, you go to class, you don't go to class, no problem. Yeah. It's totally up to you. And very early on, if you don't figure out that, I have to figure out what classes I want to take because you have an academic advisor, he will tell you typically this is what students do, this is not what they do. If you don't figure out that's what you want to do, you sit at home. I mean, I knew a couple of people that, they sat in the dorm room all day. And then 2 years later, something clicked for them and they figured out their path. They went from either nursing directly into drama or from business organization directly into science, and they figured it out. But, it clicks if you realize that, oh my God, there's nobody that's going to tell me what to do.
There's this very young audience who is listening to you.
Yeah.
Maybe grade 12.
Yeah.
I told you I wanted Chanel to speak to
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
as well. And there could be a undergrad or a postgrad student who kind of listen. What would you like to kind of tell them about this figuring it out, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so much of information available to them right now. They are confused.
Yeah.
Obviously, they look at gloss, they look at success.
Right.
They want quick success, quick wins, big wins, quick wins.
Right.
What would you like to tell them?
Look, it's a couple of things, Kunal. Quite honestly, I would tell them, try everything. Try as much as you can. I talk quite often. I was very, very lucky. Very early on in my career, I knew what my passion was. I don't take that gift lightly. I don't believe there's a lot of people out there who get to immediately figure out what their passion is. And, fortunately or unfortunately, they have to really work at figuring out what they like. And unfortunately, the distractions while you're figuring that out is the quick wealth success and, the crypto stuff or the tech buzz and everything. And you get pulled in all these directions where maybe it's just as simple as looking at it as like, what do you like to do? Somebody just needs to sit down with the student and you need to, I am a huge proponent in mentorship. I do it a lot, either with the Cornell students or with Penn State students, because I genuinely believe that if you don't have somebody who you're constantly talking to and saying, I liked doing this yesterday. It was like, okay, why? Everyone just says, I like doing this industry. I like the F&B industry. I like the travel industry. If you don't figure out why, you're never going to realize what is it in that industry.
Absolutely.
Right? I'm very close to my dear friends who are the founders of Bombay Canteen, the Hunger Incas. For them, the passion in the F&B industry, if you ever look at Yash and Sam's social media, they always talk about the true ethos that went behind the vision for that. And it was always a service culture driven approach. They loved seeing people happy behind the bar and behind the
and then the
table.
Creativity and then the
that's
food and
where
then
it
everything
starts,
else.
right? Everything else follows after that. But if you don't understand why you're doing what you're doing, then everything else will fall apart because you will never build a strategy behind it. So any new student at ISH, I would always say, try to find out why. Talk to people. And the best way to do it is talk to other entrepreneurs. See why they do what they do. What ticked them? Why do you like being in the hotel business? Why do you like being in the airline business? And once you realize what their passion is and what that stemmed from, then you can start any experience you have, then you can say, oh, I really like that experience.
Do you believe that it needs to be very broad-based? Discover, because you do not know what you don't know. And it's only when you discover there is something new that you will discover which can become your passion. But unless you don't discover, unfortunately in India, we make our kids either choose a path very early on, early on as grade 8, grade 9, whether it's engineering or medicine or architecture or law. And I personally believe that, and that's what we're even doing with ISH, is this whole, I would say, liberal hospitality, very broad-based subjects, focused on one area, and then you stretch it, you want to go deeper into it, you want to challenge assumptions. And eventually what really happens is a child rediscovers his or her own discovery. And in that process, they grow their mind.
Look, Kunal, we've spoken about it a lot, right? Because when we were building ISH, we had this discussion that the hospitality industry, to define the hospitality industry, we would be extremely remiss if we only looked at hotel management related stuff, right? We knew You came from the airline business, and we knew that that was one aspect of
Absolutely.
hospitality. Retail, fashion. Today, if you look at car brands like Porsche, right? They're not really selling a car. They're selling
An
a
experience.
lifelong experience with a
Absolutely.
brand.
And look at the subsectors.
Exactly.
In
Right?
hospitality.
And today, when we tell our students, don't be pigeonholed in what you think hotel management is, right? Marriott's and Hilton's and, whether it's the Indigos or everyone needs to learn from everyone. You can learn hospitality in the retail business. You can learn it, you take the online Clear Trip,
Absolutely.
right? It's still a service-related product.
I think
How do you
everything
get
is
that?
hospitality.
Exactly.
It's omnipresent.
Everything is hospitality. Today, going back to the BlackRocks and the Blackstones, they are hiring from hospitality
Totally.
programs because we are so diverse in our mindset.
Absolutely.
We have the financial acumen, but we have the people skills.
Yes.
You don't get that today. And if an institute like ISH can mold that candidate, then you have somebody that can do so many things. And that CEO level candidate is huge.
You spoke about skills, and before we get into your hotel ownership aspect, Adi, when you're looking to hire today, right? What are the top 3 skills, hard or soft, that for you is like this needs to be there, whether today or 10 years from now, whether AI is there or maybe a chat GPT 7.0 comes tomorrow. What are those 3 or 4 skills you think is required, non-negotiable?
So I would start with, not in any particular ranking, but creative thinking, humility,
Yes.
and I would say confidence. Because those are 3 things, I'll be honest with you, I cannot teach you. I cannot teach you. It just comes from within. It comes from your life experiences. Everything else I can teach you. Whether it's real estate, whether it's finance, all that stuff.
True.
But even in hotels, right? Take COVID, right? COVID was a perfect example. If you didn't have a general manager, forget the financials. You could throw those budget reports in the garbage when COVID hit. If you didn't have a general manager who could creatively think outside the box on how to look after the staff, but also protect the owner's interests, and sit down with the owners and in a humility, have the humility to have a discussion with the owner and say, look, it's going to hurt, but can we work on this together? You would never get there. Today, you were fortunate if you had a GM that could think along all those metrics.
So it's creativity with agility, you would say?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Unless you don't have that agile
because
mindset.
then that confidence comes in, right? You have the creative, but if you don't have the confidence to act on that creativity or have the audacity to at least go to your owner and say, do you mind if I try it?
Now, when you spoke about these 3 key skills, for me, that's a hospitality professional.
Absolutely.
Right all the way. And it's like, it's been, the suit has been cut to fit that person with these 3 skills. I also believe, I genuinely believe, and we have spoken about this, that hospitality is the foundational pillar.
It is.
For any
It absolutely
organization.
is. It absolutely is.
And that's what we're kind of doing with ISH. Adi, I'll deviate and go back. The tryst with hotel, hotel ops, Cornell, real estate, finance, and then you took the biggest risk at some stage and you say, you know what, I want to be a hotel owner. Take us through that journey.
So obviously after Cornell, I did get recruited by a Big Four, Ernst & Young, but again, exactly as they planned within their hotel real estate finance division. And that was beyond enthralling for me. I always thought I would go in the hotel development route. I would join one of the Big Four companies, Big Four hotel brands, and then join them for real estate development. But joining the consulting business and doing these projects of being on the owner side and building out feasibility studies and highest and best use reports to see how did they go from a land plot to saying, I want to put a hotel there and stuff. That was fascinating. I had the opportunity to work with sovereign wealth funds across countries, the UAE Sovereign Wealth Fund, the African countries Sovereign Wealth Fund, Europe. I was in situations where a huge company would come and say, we're going to give you a task. assume there's $1 billion. How would you develop our hospitality portfolio? I mean, those kind of things, you literally have a carte blanche to use your creativity and say, it's my money. What would I do with it? And that I loved. And I did that for 4-5 years. Over the years, then I started getting to the realization that I'm doing this for everyone else's money.
Let me do it
right?
myself.
I need to do this for myself. Opportunity struck where my boss at that time joined the new Dubai Airport Authority, and they were leasing plots of land. And given my experiences with hotel owners in America, how they started small with mid-market hotels, I wanted to do that first. I wanted to start with a first airport hotel that was affordable. The lease was available. I obviously put the whole business plan together. And this is where I believe my experience really worked in my defense, right? I started with hotel operations, then went into consultancy. I was able to formulate my own business plan because I did it already.
Both at a strategic level and at an operational
Exactly.
level.
And then presenting it to my father and the business and the banks and everyone and raising money along those fronts was a very, very eye-opening exercise. It was a very humbling exercise. I can tell you honestly, asking money from, family, friends, banks hurts because, you're going to get a lot of no's. And it was so much so that they look at you and saying, there's no way a kid like you should ever be in the hotel owning business. You should be inside a hotel, not, and that hurts for quite some time. The opportunity presented itself
But did that make you more resilient?
absolutely. And the one thing that always struck me was now that I've started on this path, I have to finish it. Because there are a lot of entrepreneurs and there were a lot of hotel owners and developers, even in Dubai and UAE, that said a lot of things, that started a lot of things and never finished. Financial crisis aside, etc.
Yeah.
And I always said that if I was ever going to succeed, even if this will be my one and done hotel, I have to be known as the guy that said what he said, did what he said, and finished what he said he was going to do.
So the never give up attitude.
Yeah, and I really said it was going to hurt. Obviously, as you can imagine now in hindsight, financial crisis, oil crash, airport authority stole the airport project. Through all of that, I remember sitting down with my family and saying, look, everything aside, raising money, all that stuff, at the very least, we need to have a finished hotel asset, no matter what. Good, bad times, at least we'll have a physical working asset. Whether the value has diminished or not, you cannot stop halfway through. Let's finish it.
Adi, tell me something. Go back to college education.
Yeah.
I go back to Cornell. I go back to you being an analyst sectoral with EY.
Yeah.
And then when you raised money and then you saw the down cycle and cyclical side of the business, did those Excel sheets work you or now your life skills work for you?
Well, the Excel sheets were pretty much irrelevant at that time. I was like, there's no point looking at these numbers because numbers are, you can put in whatever you want. It was pretty much garbage in, garbage out at that point, and there was nothing you could do. It was a financial downturn. The oil price had crashed. Sovereign funds around the area, whenever you had a market that was reliant on the oil price, that crashed. And then you just waited. And then of course 2020 COVID happened. There was no P&L on earth that could save you. It was really a life skill.
So I just want to go behind the mind of that entrepreneur right now, because here you thought it was a good project. It looked feasible. Right? You approached the brand and the environmental factors or the 5 vector forces worked against you. How does one navigate through that? And that's true entrepreneurship. We're trying to get to that aspect. Do they teach you this in business school?
They definitely do not. And I'll tell you one thing, Kunal. 100% it is your people ecosystem around you that will save you.
True.
It is absolutely, there was
Your family,
nothing
your
on earth
friends.
that I would have been able to do if it wasn't for my parents and my wife.
Yeah.
Without them, I would have been a complete gone case. Of course, my father, from a financial perspective, told me
And his
to
experience.
hang out. Yeah, and, you know, look, he was
I'm sure he would have seen
multiple up and downs.
So right.
You know, and you know, he obviously from a business perspective told me that this is something we have to deal with. Move on. He always told me that cross your T's, dot your I's. Everything after that, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Right? But if you go into that without having done your homework and not protecting everything, that's on you.
And do you also believe that constant pivoting
Yeah.
is required for an entrepreneur to survive?
Absolutely. You know, and when we had a lot of that downturn, I spent a lot of time with my general manager. And I said, the one thing that will define us is flexibility. We have to find a way how to look after it. So that we went back to our staff. What can we do with our staff? How do we pivot it? I was the only hotel that did not fire or reduce the salaries for one of my staff during COVID.
Adi, it's not hotel, it's you and it's your father. We'll talk about that later.
Look, we
but-
were an
but
opportunity.
It's who
right?
you are.
But going back to your point of how did you...
Because your
Where was your
investments, even
mindset?
in ISS, so
Absolutely.
sorry, at that point in time, COVID happened, right?
Correct.
Hospitality was
Absolutely.
directly hit.
Absolutely.
So it's the person that...
And it was
that you
something
are.
that, you know, I spent many, many nights sitting down with my wife, and she was just drilling it into me that this too shall pass,
Yes.
you know, and all you have to do is listen to your gut. And if your gut
and
is
this
telling you
too shall
1, 2,
pass.
3 things is the right
Absolutely.
thing to do,
Yeah.
then do it. And if it's going to hurt, it's going to hurt. But do the
Yeah.
right thing and just trust that it will pass and we will get through it.
Yeah.
You know, and you just need the right people around you, and you just need to keep coming up with new ideas. You know, and that's basically what we did.
There's something in Hindi, you know, and I tell this to every consultant, anybody who would probably approach with some numbers to me, and I'll say this in Hindi. It's saying, computer में देखोगे तो data नजर आएगा, नजर ऊपर देखोगे तो दुनिया नजर
Yeah,
आएगी.
correct.
You know, and that life experience is much more
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
That grind, but more importantly, as you rightly said, that never give up attitude, that resilience, that this too shall pass.
And there's one more thing I want to add, Kunal, that I did that I would definitely recommend to everybody. During the financial crisis, during COVID, I went into a very networking / advice asking mode, right? I wanted to find out from anyone I could what they were doing.
Correct.
I was a complete stalker on LinkedIn. I must have
You were a
sent
sponge.
out.
You were
I
a
was a
sponge.
sponge
Yeah.
because I said, "Look, I am way too young to think that I know how to navigate out of this." Right? And my number one experience was American entrepreneurs, and unlike anywhere else in the world, Kunal, American entrepreneurs are genuine givers. Really, if you go to the YPO network, EO network in America, they're billionaires and they will pick up the phone and talk to you. I've
Self-made.
never seen that anywhere in the world. And I have to say, credit to America, whether it's their vision of how they believe entrepreneurship and hard work and giving back to their society
You're
is,
so right.
but they allowed it.
And this really happened, you know, and a lot of people have mentioned that how come they're successful,
Yeah.
right? The tech spark.
Yeah.
That Palo Alto is where, as you rightly said, you reach out and people will
People will
help. They're
talk
all
to you.
first generation
Exactly.
entrepreneurs
Yeah.
wanting to give back,
Exactly.
open codes,
100%.
source codes, do whatever you have to do.
And this is what I would say to the students. It's like, get on your LinkedIn, get on your social media, get on your network, and just go knock on doors.
Yeah.
And I did that. I must have sent out about 200 emails on LinkedIn, and 90% didn't write back. But 10%, 15, 20 notes I got back. Hey, sure, you're in Dubai. Yeah, we can jump on a call 8 a.m. Eastern time. And I would get on the call. Hey, what hotels? I noticed you have these many hotels. What are you doing?
So part of the reason I do this podcast, let me be very honest with you, is continuous improvement.
Yeah.
You know, I hear so much, I absorb so much,
Yeah.
and I tell you, with each podcast, the next day or the following week, I'll huddle in with my team members and they say, you know what, that's what he did, or that's what she did, and that's what he kind of told me. Why don't we apply this?
Right.
Why didn't we think about this? Right. And I think this is pretty much, I would say, nugget MBA happening even at this stage of our lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to your point, I think what you just said, becoming that sponge.
Yeah.
And do you still do that?
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I am a firm believer that till I'm 90, I will learn. Till I'm on my deathbed, I will learn. It's something that I've learned from my father, who to this day, he will stand up and say, I don't know about this. I want to learn more.
Yeah.
When it was COVID and when it was financial crisis, him and I would sit down together and he would say, get on a call with this person. Let's ask him his opinion. You know, and that was his way of saying, let me ask you a question. Absolutely. What did you do? And he was like, oh, that's a good point. And most people at his level would have been like, why would I ever ask somebody else? People are coming to me to ask. But he would learn. And it would be youngster. And he always told me, he was like, you can learn from anybody. Anybody. And that, I would say, for any parent who is allowing their kid to grow.
That's such a great life lesson.
Instill in them to just ask questions, and you do it yourself. Lead by example.
So right.
As a parent, you show your humility by saying, hey, we can learn from this person. We can learn from that. Ask a question. You know, because if you do that, and if you think you're a know-it-all, you're over before it even starts.
Yeah. So, Ari, there are these triggers, again, with the podcast and other aspects. I genuinely say this. I know so little now. I thought I knew, but I know so little now with so much of conversations that is happening. Tell me, the family, the diversified interests, a lot of investments that you're making, sometimes in startups. What's driving your decisions behind these strategies?
So it was obviously started with the hotel, right? So my first foray into it was, I want to invest in the hotel. I want to do that well. After I did the hotel, and it took a very long time to obviously stabilize because I had to deal with two very existential crises. But now that it's stabilized, sitting down with the family, I am very clear of what I know and what I don't know, right? I take a lot of inspiration from people like Warren Buffett, who always say that stick as much as you can in your wheelhouse, because that's something you understand, whether it's investments, whether it's
long-term
learning and long-term, stick to what you know. So I said that whatever I grow into, I will make sure it's hospitality adjacent, right? Because that's my wheelhouse. If I go to my father again for investment or business ideas, if I go to the bank, the way they will look at me and say, what does he know about that business?
True.
At the very least, I want to say, I understand the hospitality and real estate side of it.
And now education.
But even the education side was a hospitality related side, right? So everybody saw that, oh, that makes sense. He's a hotelier. He's a hotel business owner. The hotel institution is a very logical attachment to that. You know, F&B, very logical attachments. Now we are looking at other ancillary real estate side of businesses, which is healthcare, which is student housing, you know, those kind of investments we're looking at, because the real estate side of it also makes sense for me and I understand it. So slowly we are making sure that any investments we do, we fit in that realm and start building up that ecosystem.
And is it restricted to the Middle East, or you're doing some India investments as well?
We would look everywhere. Apart from ISH, I mean, we would look at everywhere. But again, you know, Middle East is a market we know very well. America is a market we know very well. And as long as we have trusted partners and advisors in that wheelhouse that will help us build that, we're happy to look at those opportunities.
Let's go back to 2017. You met Dilip at that point in time. Subsequently, we met. What was the decision behind at that stage? Because I believe the hotel investment had not come in at that stage, right?
It was not open, but it was under construction.
Oh, it was under construction, right? And then there was this agencies, which is hospitality education in India. How did the family view this aspect of giving back?
So in 2017, a family friend of ours introduced us to Dilip Puri and said there's an interesting opportunity with hospitality education. He obviously knew about my investment with the hotel and everything. And I didn't know of Dilip Puri. So obviously, as I was with the Starwood team building the Aloft, I kind of reached out to the network and they were like, okay, he's obviously the head of the entire market for Starwood in India. And he obviously knows. So when we went and I sat down with my father and I said, look, it's education. Firstly, no-brainer. It's hospitality education, which will serve us in the long term very well. And the promoter is obviously of very, very reputed ilk, and he would know what he's doing. So when you tick those three boxes, you kind of realize that it is an absolute no-brainer, right? Firstly, my father's family has a very strong educational, not investment, but educational history in that his great ancestry was part of the founding of Presidency College and stuff like that. So they were one of the first deans, if I'm not mistaken. I don't necessarily remember.
That's rich heritage legacy.
Yeah, so for them, and my dad's mother's side were all educated women, so education was a very, very critical
Firstly, it's a
element.
no-brainer. They're all from Tamil Nadu?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a no-brainer, right?
So very, very hardcore about how important education is. And what that stands for all of us. Then when we were looking at the investment, he automatically believed that it was the right thing to do going forward. And I said, okay, perfect. Let's really look at this. And then, in talking to you and Dilip, and when we said, having done hospitality education myself, undergraduate, postgrad, I already knew what I liked and didn't like about my experiences, right? And that's where all three of our discussions really molded. And I said, what more would I have wanted to see? And what I had wanted to see was to have the industry as front and center in our experience, and show the world and the students that the best education is the practical application of it, and how the industry is going to be the ones driving the curriculum.
When we came to you in 2017, and of course 2024 right now, you've seen the evolution, I would say. Certain pivots, but the evolution. How would you describe it as a founder investor?
Look, it's a huge source of pride for us, right? We're very excited. Obviously, like I mentioned, I always come to campus when it's buzzing and lively. Today we're here in summer on a Saturday, and I just remember the days where we were building the building, right? And it was quiet, and we were thinking, imagine when there's like 300 students. Now we have 400 plus, like
now it's
cross 500, and you're just thinking, it's like, we did that together. It's awesome to have given an opportunity for 500 plus students, 1,000 plus parents, the opportunity to give their students, their children, the opportunity to enjoy the hospitality education, the industry, and you guys have gone one step further, where I would say you're not just educating the students, but you have opened up the mindset of Indian parents to say, this is a genuinely viable opportunity, a career opportunity in culinary arts. I mean, how amazing, for a parent to know that their child will go through the École du Casse program and maybe become a chef entrepreneur one day and be on the top 50.
And that's what's happening right now. And in fact, after this interview, you're going to meet two of our students as well who are going to pitch in front of you. You're absolutely right. But I know you don't like talking about this, Adi, but I need to mention this. Your family also have been very, very generous patrons. And hence, it's luxury education, it's quality education, but more importantly, it's affordable education because of of you and your family, right? So I'd like to thank you.
Thank you
for that continuous patronage, and you have been, through your generous endowment to ISH, I can tell you for a fact there are at least 10 or 15 students right now who have benefited, and they were meritorious students. And by any stretch of imagination, there is no way they could have afforded such quality education, right? At best, they would have been in some kind of I would say, government institution. But I believe this one small trigger, milestone change in them is a path to a completely different direction. And so thank you. And thank you, Mr. Rajaram, for that as well.
No, absolutely. And it's obviously, it's for both my parents, being able to do this is huge. Obviously, our country is being an expat diaspora.
True.
We don't get often the opportunity to be front and center in giving back to the country and its people. And I think it was a great opportunity for us, especially with education, because we genuinely believe that, globally, that's how it works,
True.
right? I mean, all the greatest schools around the world, there is a scholarship endowment sort of ecosystem that works. And our school, as young as it is slowly building that ecosystem.
So as you already know, but I'll reiterate it for you, around 40% of all our students are on at least 40 to 50% generous scholarships. And that allows them to come into the mainstream, good quality education, and they go back into the industry, right? I think what we are building it is what perhaps Cornell built, or Penn State built it over the years.
Absolutely.
Another 20 years from now, I think it will be self-sustaining from that perspective. Our alumni will be kind of doing that. Adi, your family giving back to India, I believe there are just two aspects in India, and this is my personal belief, that one is healthcare and one is education. You have already given to education through ISH, right? And we will grow from here. Any plans towards healthcare in India?
We haven't really looked at it per se, but it's definitely, a very, very important sector and industry. And it's something that, if an opportunity presents itself, we would definitely look at it. But never say never.
And if I have to probably put you through a 5-year prism right now, and you look into the future, what do you think will happen with Radar Holdings, your investment firm?
A lot of things I would hope. One is I would definitely like to build out our hotel ownership platform, our hotel operations platform. I have obviously built out a separate entity for asset management and advisory work, which I really enjoy doing, but I've kept it at a very small scale right now because I do believe that, the experience that I went through with hotel ownership, at my age, I still have a very nascent experience compared to a lot of the big developers, even, with some of our founding investors. Their level of experience is far more significant than mine. And I want to use that opportunity to talk to other owners and people coming into the industry with my experiences. So I really like the asset management advisory side of it, and I want to keep maintaining it. But again, like I said, there's so much opportunity within sort of the real estate and hospitality sort of ecosystem that I want to look at new ideas, new opportunities, and really build out that investment platform. So we will continue to keep looking at great things forward.
And now with the children kind of growing up, right, and such diversified interests that you have, is there a work-life harmony, balance, whatever adjective you want to call it? Is there, or there are trade-offs there?
I think there definitely. It's not a defined balance, I would say. Obviously, having my own business affords me the opportunity to pick and drop off my kids. If I feel like it, I can move meetings left, right, and center. if I have a light day, I'll call up my wife. I said, you know what, I'll go surprise and pick up the kids from school today and stuff like that. Over summer break or whenever I have the opportunity to just say, if they have a break, I'll take off for 3-4 days with them. We'll take a holiday. And I'm very cognizant of that. There will be times where we will go weeks and months where, as you know, in the last 3 weeks I've been traveling. I haven't spent a lot of time at home. And then my wife will sit me down and remind me of my rebalancing that needs to happen. So I am very cognizant of that. Being an entrepreneur, it is not even physical time, but I have caught myself at times. I'm sitting down with the kids and my mind is somewhere else.
Yeah, you're zoned out.
And I'm completely, and I think that's what I need to work on a lot. I do need to be a bit more present when I'm with them. And the way I do that is, if I can't do it when I'm in Dubai, I pull all of us out of that.
Yeah.
I will
And
just
take
say, let's
short
go
trips.
2 days, let's go on a day trip somewhere. And then I just shut off. And then I'm like, I don't even look at the phone. I don't look at anything. And that's how I make it.
No, I'm going to embarrass you.
Yeah.
When is the last time you said I love you to Sana?
Last evening.
Oh, you
I'm
did?
very happy. Yeah.
You did?
We say it a lot.
Right. So I got caught out with this. Right? But tell me something. Does she complete you?
More than I can imagine. I mean, I've been very, very fortunate, in work and in my personal life. I found my true loves in both senses. She has seen me as a startup teenager, when I was 18, slowly starting, she would always joke, if you ever ask her, he was put as a omelet maker for the hospitality school.
So do you think, if I give you this analogy, definition of man is from women, do you think it's true?
I would look. I am nothing if not part of her. Honestly, and it took me, I would say that financial crisis, that COVID crisis. As you know, my dad was also unwell a couple of years back. Her strength and her confidence in me is something I believed I didn't even have in myself. It really takes a powerful partner to say, hey, if I believe in you, you can do this. You're fine.
If you have to leave a tape behind for your children, what do you think it will? What do you think it will play back?
I think out of everything, I would leave behind two things. One is really finding your passion, and I would hope that they would find it as early as possible. And two is really, truly giving absolutely everything to your partner, whoever that is. I think having a really strong and loved partner, you could take over the world. You really could.
I'll put you in a spot again. A real estate and finance forum is happening, which you really wanted to attend, or pick up your children from the school.
Ooh. I would probably pick up my kids, because I would think that like a real estate and it's happened, right? Earlier this year, it happened multiple times. But I can always go next year or whatever. But
Adi, this is the human side. This is
I guess so.
exactly who you are and why you're so enduring.
It's
and
fun.
to everyone, right?
Yeah.
And we are a large, big family, as you rightly know. But this aspect of you, the human aspect of you, makes you very, very endearing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's what Sana sees in you as well.
I hope so. I hope it. Well, she reminds me of it, which is good. You always have to stay on your toes.
There would be 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, and 50-year-olds listening to you right now. What would you like to tell?
I guess really, as maybe cheesy as it sounds, but just be true to yourself.
Yeah.
Try to be as humble as possible, and really, as you rightly said, from 20 to 50-year-olds are listening to this, you can never stop learning.
Yeah.
Whether it's a complete change in industry, maybe you're not in hospitality, maybe you've moved from hospitality to healthcare. but you found your passion. But whatever it is, just do it with that conviction that you love to do, and do it with people that you love around you.
Be the man that you are, Adi. Be that hungry man that you always are. Be that humble man that you always are. And it was such a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Host you
Really enjoyed it.
after chasing you
So
for
long.
like 6 months, but nonetheless you're here.
Thank
and
you
I'm
very much.
grateful for
Really
this
love the opportunity, and great job doing this.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to us. And once again, salam, namaste, sat sri akal, and adab.